Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to the September 19th meeting of the Portsmouth City Planning Board. Mr. Bowen, I'm going to ask you to sit for Mr. Hewitt this evening.
Yes.
So we have a 7-member planning board. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I can't make a motion, but I draw folks' attention to page 10 on Mr. Cooper's comment. I think without should have been within. If folks want to just check that quickly. I think that was...
Recording in progress.
I agree.
If there are any other, if somebody wanted to make a motion about that, or if there are any other comments.
I'll make a motion that the staff just confirm that that should be within versus without.
I'll second.
Otherwise, to accept the minutes with that note.
So moved. If you need a second full motion for that, yes. So moved.
And we have, all those in favor?
Aye.
We have determination of completeness. My iPad just flipped out of the screen. Request of Portsmouth Lumber Hardware as owner of Reese Lumber applicant for property 105 Bartlett Street, requesting site plan review approval for demolition of existing sheds and construction of 2 new storage sheds with associated site improvements. This property is on Assessor's Map 157, Lot 2, and lies within Character District CD4. Motion to accept is complete.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody in favor. You have a series of public hearings. I've been repeating this since the first of the year. Our rules changed slightly. The procedures for public hearings are be a presentation by the proponent, questions by planning board members, then public comment is open. There's up to three rounds of comments by members of the public. If you wish to speak in the second or third round, you must speak in the preceding round. It's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes. Any other questions who can come up if we get to that stage? Then I will close the public hearing and the board will make its decision. So the first item we have a public hearing for is Peter and Amy Lalime as owners of property at 1004 Greenland Road, requesting a conditional use permit from section 10814 for construction of a new detached accessory dwelling unit.
Postponement.
Did I skip one?
Yeah, you skipped
Oh, I
postponement.
jumped right down. I'm sorry. My bad. We had request to withdraw. That's where we're at?
Yes.
Yep.
Request of Samuel Holman and Christina Schneider Holman as owners for property 271 Lafayette, requesting a conditional use permit from section 10814 for construction of a detached accessory dwelling unit. This property is on Assessor's Map 230, Lot 18, and is in the single residence or SRB district. They have requested that this be withdrawn.
We don't actually need a motion for that, right?
No.
No. Just have to read it out.
Yep.
We have a request also to postpone for the request of Matt Ball and Andrea Firstham as owners for property 252 Wybird, requesting a conditional use permit from section 10814 for the conversion of an accessory dwelling structure into a detached accessory dwelling unit that does not conform with the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. This property is in Assessor's Map 149, Lot 12, and is a general residence GRA district.
Make a motion that we grant the request to postpone to January 2025 meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And now we will get to what I started to read. Request of Peter and Amy Lalime as owners for property at 1004 Greenland Road, requesting a conditional use permit from section 10814 for construction of a new detached accessory dwelling unit, DADU. This property is on Assessor's Map 262, Lot 8, and is in the single residence or SRB district. Who is here to present this application? Step up to the podium, just give your name and address.
Amy Lalime, 1004 Greenland Road, Portsmouth. And Peter?
Yep. Peter Lalime, same address.
We assume you'd like to explain the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought there was way more questions.
Oh, yeah, I was too. Yeah, we're proposing to build a garage, a detached unit garage with a living space above on our property, which we do have neighbors, but we were told we do not need any sort of variances. And I don't really know what to say beyond that because I've never been to one of these meetings, so.
I can just barely hear you.
yeah, if you
Make
could
sure
maybe
speak
step up
into
to the microphone a little bit.
Sorry about that. Did you hear anything? No. Okay, so we're proposing to build a two-car garage on our property with a living space above. We don't need any variances based on the layout of the property and where our neighbors are. And this is a dead-end road abutting I-95 with no traffic other than the few homes on the road. And there's plenty of space, as you can see from the lot. And beyond that, I'm not really sure what to say because I haven't been to one of these meetings previously, so,
Welcome.
thank you.
It doesn't have to be a long presentation, that was fine. Yes.
Thank you.
I just have a question. So you don't have any garage on the property now?
We do not. We have what you might have called a garage from 1930, but it wouldn't fit a car. And so it's just
Storage unit.
like a shed type thing.
So you're building this in a different area than where that's remaining on the property?
Yeah, what, 10 feet, maybe 10, 12 feet away? Yeah.
So you're going to build a two-car garage and then stairs up, and it's going to be just a 750 square foot unit above?
Correct.
It's actually 768. Right, Peter?
Well,
That's the footprint of the building. I'm talking about the actual ADU
ADU would be
unit.
724,
Yeah, the living
24,
space, right,
yes.
yeah.
so they are requesting a modification.
From the footprint.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
They are.
It was what he emailed out and added in. Yeah.
Any other questions or any other? No? Andrew?
Andrew?
Does your neighbor out back share that driveway? They have a right of way, I suppose?
It's our property, but it's a shared.
Yeah,
Yes,
they have right of way.
they do, yeah.
Sounds good.
No other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing then. Anybody here or on Zoom who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? If you are here or on Zoom, if you're on Zoom, raise your hand. If you're here, step up to the podium.
No hands raised.
We're going to have a quick 3 rounds. It's going to be over in like 2 seconds unless somebody raises their hand or steps up to the podium. I'm going to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion we vote to find the conditional use permit application meets requirements set forth in section 10.814.62 of the ordinance, adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I will continue and make a motion to grant the following modification from section 10.814, 434 to allow a building footprint of 777 square feet where 750 is the maximum allowed.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
I mean, we did a lot of thought process when we changed the ADU law and we put into place the 750 square foot, and it was on the idea is we didn't want someone building a garage that was going to be bigger than the house, right? We wanted to make sure that someone was going to build a structure and just put a little unit in a giant structure. So that's where this came from. I think this is a modest increase to the 750 square feet, so I think it's perfectly allowable. And considering no one seemed to have any objections about this, no neighbors have shown up, nobody's written us any letters, I don't have any heartbreak over increasing this for this specific lot, especially where it abuts a highway as well. So,
So not only no heartbreak, you feel it meets the spirit of the ordinance.
yes, it does.
Yes?
Just briefly, I'm in support of the application. I'll be voting for it. I just want to point out for our own reference, we're approving a design that very similar to one we've struggled with recently with the dormers of this condition. So I just, in some cases, this does work, I just want it to be a learning lesson learned for us. Sometimes this does work very well. Other times it poses problems.
Site-specific context.
Well, it's also footprint specific. That one was a much bigger footprint as well,
Yep,
and different neighborhood.
thank you.
It's probably hard to put,
Andrew first and then Bill.
Yeah, just to echo a lot of what Joe just said, I think there's a lot of subjectivity to it, and given that this sets back a ways from a dead-end road, as well as abuts a state of New Hampshire property, I don't see any offense to it, and so, you know, it's important for not only the board, but also the general public to acknowledge that and kind of understand the subjectivity to how context can influence these types of proposals, and as we move forward, it's also important to vocalize those as proposals come forward so that people understand how we're making these decisions.
Bill?
it's, for me, I struggle a little bit with what the specifics of the ordinance are and what the intent of the ordinance is. And I think the intent is to kind of balance the interests of the property owner with that of the neighbors, so we don't compromise the neighborhood. And in this circumstance, I would say that this accomplishes that. If you go to the site and look at this one, it really doesn't intrude and change any neighborhood, whereas the one that we looked at that Joe talks about did. So to me, that's the fundamental difference, is balancing the integrity of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions of the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I will continue to make a motion. We vote to grant the conditional use permit with the included stipulations 3.1 through 3.3.
2.1 through 2.3.
3 in the revised memo.
3 in the revised one. I'll second that.
I'm looking at two also.
I did print the revised one. I made sure I had the most current.
Rick and I are looking at old ones.
It was sent out. It's posted to the website, so it's not in the packet.
Got it. I'll still second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The request of Portsmouth Lumber and Hardware as owner for Reese Lumber as applicant property at 105 Bartlett Street, requesting site plan review approval for demolition of existing sheds and construction of 2 new storage sheds with associated site improvements. This property is on Assessors Map 157, Lot 2, and lies within the Character District CD4W. Who is here to present this application?
Good evening, board members. My name is Patrick Moretti, President of Ritchie Lumber, and I'm here representing our company for this application for improvements at our building material location. I have with me tonight Ed Hayes, former president and current owner of the Ritchie Lumber property, Patrick Crimmins, the engineer of Ty and Bond, Brett Kelly, Senior Vice President of Kodak Building Partners, the actual building business owner. I also want to thank a number of the associates from the company who are here to support us tonight. We are here tonight seeking the approval from the board to make some vital improvements at our facility and operation. For those who have been in our business, it's obvious that several of the buildings on the property have outlived their purposes in a modern lumberyard. They are inefficient, ugly with age, in need of constant maintenance, and concerning because of the timber construction. In this request, we're looking to update our yard operations by constructing modern, efficient, and safer storage buildings in place of the wooden structures that we now utilize. The location will mirror the same side that the new buildings, where the current new and old buildings currently exist, with one building being one open 3-sided barn to accommodate weather-sensitive materials. Since last November, we have been working towards tonight's meeting, designing, redesigning the buildings, their final locations, and the intentions of them. Having appeared at a number of work sessions with TAC, we have continued to adjust our proposal based on the members' insight and their comments. When we received the final approvals last month to move this to the planning board, the final decision accepted ended up being the best design for the project while meeting all the committee's requirements and the city's standards. I want to respect your time tonight and not recite all the particulars contained in the packet of information that we provided. We strongly believe that the documentation addresses all the conditions essential for the approval by this board. Certainly, if there are any questions from the board that my colleagues or I can answer that pertain to our request, we would be pleased to answer them for you. Thank you for your time, and just closing, let's go Patriots.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant and his team? Yes.
I agree with the Go Patriots, so I'm right there behind you. I'm sure my husband will start watching before I get home tonight. So you're basically just taking something that's already existing and you're just making it new and better and stronger and capable of lasting.
100%. It's safer, more modern. It's going to serve our customers as well as the operation much better.
Great, thank you.
I've got a question about the condition of the street. Does that stay that way until the new property on the shore is developed?
Ed, you might want to address that a little bit, but the plan for the property is that we are going to, we have to mediate the stormwater on our property, so we're going to have to go across the street and follow the plans that were drawn up for that. So instead, our plan is to construct the buildings and at the same time install all the sewer, not sewer, but wastewater drainage from our property to the proper locations. At that point in time, I'm sure that the project behind us will be getting started, and then that road is part of that construction process, not ours.
Any other questions? Pretty straightforward. Thank you very much. Going to open the public hearing. Is anybody here or on Zoom wish to speak to, for, or against this application?
Good evening. Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I follow this project since its inception. I think it was 2017. I'm not 100% sure. And I'd like to speak in favor of this portion that they've asked to do. I think it will be an improvement for those who walk by there. And generally, it will be nice just to have, I mean, lumber yards are just by nature kind of a little messy. But I think by the time they're done, it'll be really much nicer than it is now. So I am in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any on Zoom? Once again, I'm going to make this quick unless folks raise their hand or either on Zoom or in person. If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Board, who wants?
Vote to grant the site plan approval with the following conditions outlined in the staff memo 2.1
You have to do,
Do the findings of
Findings
you
of
have to
fact?
do the site plan meets
Findings of
minimum
fact.
findings of
I
fact.
thought we did
first.
that earlier.
We do it for every application.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind, take it back.
Don't worry, we'll
Vote
get
to
there.
find
We'll get there.
the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulations, section 2.9, evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of facts as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Chair,
Continue.
vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions outlined in the staff memo 2.1 through 2.7, noting that 2.6 and 2.7 are subsequent to the commencement of site work.
Second.
That-
Competitive second there, I'm not sure.
Joe is slacking.
Any discussion?
I think it meets the intents. It's good for the city, good for the project.
It's a community resource, good idea. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Request of Deer Street Hospitality. You okay? Deer Street Hospitality is owner for property at 165 Deer Street, requesting conditional use permit in accordance with section 10.1112.14 to allow 78 parking spaces where 83 are required. This property is located on Assessor's Map 125, Lot 17, and lies within the characteristic CD5 and the downtown overlay districts. Who is here to present this application?
Guess that's me. I'm the only one left.
Has to be you, right?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, member of the board. My name is Doug Reynolds with Goral Palmer. We're here representing Deer Street Hospitality. Again, within your package, we're requesting a reduction of 5 spaces on the lot. Currently, there are 80, well, it was approved for 83 spaces. The reduction of 5 drops us down to 78. We've provided the parking analysis to staff, and I met with TAC and had limited to no comments from them. Essentially, they had five car lift spaces in the garage, and the generator for that was a longer lead time than they anticipated, and at this point, again, the parking analysis that we provided, it indicated a max of 73 spaces are needed. So where we're at.
Okay. Questions of the applicant? Andrew?
More curiosity than anything, there isn't another opportunity within the garage to put the lifts in another spot?
It's basically the power of the actual that actually lift the lifts.
Like the generator itself?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I misinterpreted that.
Yeah,
So the generator itself could not be placed?
Right.
I see. I see.
I guess to follow up on that, why wasn't that planned out ahead of time? I mean,
Well,
it should have been part of the original plans.
Actually, I misspoke. The fire suppression system required a larger generator or a larger transformer to based on the fire marshal requirements, and with that larger. Again, it's electrical engineering, so that's not me. But basically, they couldn't, to meet that, they didn't have the space for the power to generate the lift machinery.
I guess I feel like this should have been discovered when the whole thing was being put together, and so I guess I have a really hard time finding out why you didn't plan for this need.
It was something, again, the planning board process was 6 years ago now, and then when they.
I know, I was here.
Oh, yeah, okay. And the building itself has gone through a number of different designs, and then when they went to the latest architect went to the fire marshal, then the requirement for a larger pump and system was required.
Has the fire code changed, or has some fire issue changed in the last 6 years?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Yes, Andrew.
More logistical than electrical engineering on this one, but it highlights that hotel valet services will be doing the management of all the parking.
Yep.
So does that insinuate that no guests will be parking their own car?
Correct.
Okay. So to use the garage, they have to valet it?
Correct.
I see.
Right.
Will the valets be parking elsewhere, not in the garage?
I believe the valets, there's 50 spaces within this building, and there's, I believe, 33 spaces in the Foundry Place garage that they'd be valeting to.
But not on the street?
Not on the street.
Yes, Bill?
So I'm struggling a little bit. Had you known this at the beginning, that you would have this mechanical difficulty, you would have had an opportunity to take a different approach to the construction of the building. And you could have had fewer rooms, fewer cars, and it would have worked on the lot. But because you didn't anticipate the difficulty of part of the mechanical needs that you had, you went ahead with a design that doesn't work. And so therefore you need relief on parking from what the code calls for? Is that?
Again, it is in a nutshell, yes. But again, the system for the powering item that they need it's been on order for 18 months or longer. If they were to get another one, it would be another 18 months. to make it work for the lifts. And again, I think you want that hotel finished in an operation in a shorter time than 18 more months.
Well, coming more to what Goral Parma does on a daily basis, there's, how many parking spaces and what did your analysis show you actually needed?
There's, it's approved for 83 spaces. We're proposing 78. The analysis that we provided shows a anticipated, and again, anticipated peak demand of 64 spaces on a weekday, and 60 spaces on a Saturday. So again, that's the analysis that we did, based on ITE standards for this type of hotel.
It's not an ITE standard, it's an ITE database, but yeah.
Yeah.
Important term. Tony?
Have you compared the percentiles from ITE compared to existing hotels in Portsmouth and what they're seeing for demand?
We didn't actually do that, but again, based on discussions with other people, again, that they're seeing that they're not being filled. But again, that's just hearsay.
And if I can come back to me or whatever.
Keep going.
Okay. Just a comment, then a question. The comment is that I do know in construction you can be a little bit at the whim of the fire department in terms of what they want and need. So I think, I don't know that you could say is that there was a mistake in the design from the beginning. You make an assumption based on code requirements, and then a building official can come in and say, we want this. And so it just is why I don't want to make it so clear that there was a mistake in design and this is at their own doing. You can get these things following up afterwards. It sounds like the problem is time, not like we don't have space for this. It's just that now because of this change, it requires us to switch to a different mechanical unit.
Yep.
Is there a method, an avenue where it's like, sure, open up your facility, but in 2 years we want to see this lift system?
That was one tack that they were going to look at, but again, doing the parking demand analysis, it determined that we really don't need those 5 more spaces. So again, that was the option that we went with.
Andrew?
It's a question, I think, for you, the chair, as well as maybe the applicant. Are those 33 spaces in the Foundry Garage in perpetuity?
They are part of the agreement when the bond was approved, correct?
Yeah.
They were part of the original agreement.
Right.
I think it's,
In
the
perpetuity.
answer is yes.
There's
The
so
answer is
many
yes.
in that garage that were for all of those projects. And they were split between lot 6 and lot 3.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that your only question?
It is.
Okay.
Just an observation. I don't have a lot of heartburn about the loss of a few spaces. I wasn't here for this original approval on the board, but being someone that lives right next door to a hotel, the much greater impact to vehicular circulation and the congestion is, I'm not seeing where a bus full of, a team or buses pull up or delivery trucks pull up. Not part of this application, but my point is, this is kind of minimal compared to the congestion issues that could occur, might occur. I see this as minimal. I do wish there was a unloading, unless I'm just not seeing it. Delivery vehicles, maintenance vehicles, people working on the building, but specifically buses, wedding trolleys, they just line up in the streets. To me, that's what causes the most impact to more stress to residents and traffic, not the loss of a few spots.
I think the overall site plan, we are to treat as a given. I think what we're looking
Right.
at is a very narrow, your point is well taken.
I just
Your
made
point is
the
well
point
taken.
that, to me,
Right.
this is minimal, the greater impact, or there are other things here that are greater impact that we don't have control over right now.
Hear what you're saying. Yes, Tony?
One more question. All these parking numbers, the amounts, are based on a vehicle parked in a striped space,
Yep.
and that we all have seen valets, they can be creative with their stacking, so.
And we did propose additional, I mean, currently, as you're looking at the screen, the top half of those parking spaces are valet spaces where you're stacked up above in each other. We talked to the staff about saying, okay, well, we'll just do it on the other side with 5 more spaces, and we still have the same spaces. And you know, again, if you've been to Boston for a game and you get valeted, you're parking everywhere. So again, but they don't anticipate having to do that, again, just due to the parking demand.
So you had me until you proposed that to staff to do the double stack spacing on the other side?
Again, it was not double stacked, they were parallel. Can I go up?
I can comment on that. So they proposed, wrong.
There you go.
Having the 5 spaces in front of these park spaces, but we can't count those as legal conforming spaces. And then it would also reduce the drive aisle.
Because the aisle has to be a certain way.
If it was a drive aisle
We
concern,
couldn't
yeah.
count those as conforming parking spaces.
But just quickly on Tony's point, a valet valets could
Could
slide a
shove-
couple more cars in there.
So when people come in to stay there, does the hotel always manage where their car is parked?
Yes.
So every person that comes in, they plan for
They
that.
know where their car is going to be parked, and again, they get a,
I ask because I live in the neighborhood
Yep.
right near here. I can see the Foundry Garage from my
Yep.
house. So we have a really big parking problem in our neighborhood, especially when people filter in and find free parking. I see it all the time. So as long as the hotel's managing it, it gives me a little less heartburn.
Just a little bit more elaboration on Tony's point. When I first looked at this, my question was, if the valets are managing the drop-off area as well, currently those are not in your parking count on the
correct.
circle, right?
Correct. Those 3 spaces, 3 or 4 spaces
Yeah.
on the little circle, that's when somebody's going to be dropped off. You know, they're going to,
Right.
or they're going to get their bags, go up and give it to the valet.
Your comparison to, typically that's where you display all the Ferraris that are coming to the hotel, right?
Right,
The
exactly,
valets
yeah.
would stack cars up there and manage.
Yeah.
So those spaces exist for vehicles. I was looking for a creative way to somehow count those as a space, because you could fit 3 vehicles there.
Yep. I had a technical question. You chose business hotel as your land use
Yep.
category. And did you look at what it might be if it was not business hotel but regular hotel?
Again, we looked at the one that was, again, it was general urban setting, general urban suburban setting for a 116 room hotel. Like you said, we used the business hotel. I mean, to us, that was the one that was most appropriate.
So the answer is you didn't look at a hotel, regular hotel? Did not? Or at least you're going to share it if you did.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me now. I know we looked at it, but.
Because a business hotel might have the Saturday reduction, but a conventional hotel, especially in Portsmouth, may not.
Yep.
That's why I raised the question. Any other questions? No other questions of the applicant? Any other, this is your last chance. You have a question of us. You don't? You're good? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody here or on Zoom wish to speak to, for, or against this application?
Good evening,
And you can
Elizabeth.
you can sit down, sir.
Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. I'd like to speak against this application. For those of you who understand lift spaces versus tandem spaces, Lift spaces involve stacking two cars on top of each other, tandem or one behind the other. So if you remove 5 lift spaces, you're removing 10 parking spaces, not just 5. So you want to keep that in mind. They also already got a reduction in their parking, so this is adding another 10 more spaces if you do the math that way. So to me, this is a bonus on a bonus on a bonus, because they're already getting the downtown overlay district bonus, which allows them to take 0.75 spaces instead of 1.25, which is a 60% reduction. I would be willing to consider, and it would be something to think about, is that they could actually put in, because if you take away the 5 spaces and then you do the math, how many rooms is that? If they're using the 1.25, it's 4 rooms, and if they're using the 5 spaces with the 0.75, it's 6 rooms. But if you took away those rooms and turned them into 2 affordable housings or 1, you would reduce the parking demand significantly, and you could actually have a place for that poor valet who's going to have to work 24 hours a day to park all those Ferraris. So it's just something to look at that's a little different than hotel rooms. They built this hotel knowing they didn't have enough room to begin with. When they designed this, they knew what the dimensions were. They knew exactly how many spaces they needed. They've already received a reduction in that because the actual number is much higher. And now they want another reduction. And that reduction is not 5 spaces. When I do the math, it's actually 10. So that even though the valet is going to be parking them, eventually they're going to need a place to put them other than out front. And I would strongly suggest that they either need to revamp how they're doing it, make a few less rooms, or they need to think about correcting the problem that they created themselves, which they were probably fully aware of because you start in TAC, and they already tell you up front what they're going to be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can we, I don't want to get into asking questions of the public, but, all right, just didn't understand the 10, and so I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. Is there a way to get the clarity from the applicant on that, or a response to it? It was
Maybe she
it
heard
was
me
just-
in maybe the second round.
If there'd be a motion to suspend the rules to ask questions,
Or to respond to a statement.
but based on our rules, we can't do it.
Okay,
You'd have to.
all right.
We can't ask a question, but if the applicant wants to get up and speak during the public
applicant
hearing,
can-
they can get up and
The applicant is
respond.
welcome to speak during the public hearing,
As a member of the public, yeah.
as a member of the public.
All right.
As a member of the public, again, those 5 spaces are currently 5 of the spaces that are still to remain. They would just be, the lift would be above those spaces. So it is not a 10 space reduction. It would only be the 5 actual lifts.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
But from the wrong person.
Anybody else here or on Zoom who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Is there anybody on Zoom?
We lost our one Zoom attendee.
We have to start
One
the second.
second. Anybody, any first-time speakers? We had one on Zoom, but they're gone?
Lost them.
They're gone.
We lost our one Zoom person.
I'm going to give the Zoom person one last chance because we had a technical problem one time and it caused an issue later. If you're on Zoom, this is your last chance. Raise your hand.
We're up here.
Okay, second round speakers.
5 minutes.
Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. So the 5 spaces, they said, had to be removed in order to put in the fire system. That's what he said just a few minutes ago. And those 5 spaces are all lift spaces. And the way lift spaces work is one car parks on the ground, then you have a machine which raises the second car above it. And that's how I got 10. So he may say there's 5 spaces, but why would he need a 5-space reduction if there's 10? So to me, that's 10 spaces. Because the equipment that they had to put in took away 5 spaces. So if they're no longer lift, you've actually lost 10. That's how I perceive it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other second round speakers? Not going to be a debate on Zoom because we didn't have a first round speaker. Any other second round speakers? I'm going to close the public hearing. Board discussion. Yes.
I have fought in my own head with this request, and mostly because it is a really big building. They could probably redesign it and have enough parking. So, that's where I have a heartbreak. And if we turned them down, then they'd have to just find another way to accommodate. So I don't feel like there's really a good reason for this. The only thing that gets me over the hump is, and as much as the speaker thinks it's 10 spots, they didn't take the 5, they're taking away the lift because they don't have the power to lift. So they still have 5 of those spots, they just don't have all 10. So the actual lift function's what's going away from my understanding, not the actual parking spots. So I wanted to make sure that was super clear. It's because they can't get a big enough generator that could actually handle the fire suppression equipment and 5 lifts. So it is only a reduction of the 5, but only is a term of art that could be quite a lot. But if the staff of the hotel are managing all clientele parking, then we know, well, if they run out of spots, then they'll pay the garage for more, or they'll find a way to stack them in there one on top of the other. I mean, they can get creative. And as long as the hotel is managing that, then I have less heartburn over a 5-car reduction. But I don't know how other people feel.
Is there a motion in there?
No, I didn't. I just
Discussion.
just
so-
discussing. I had to get my emotions out.
Shouldn't have a motion to
We should
discuss.
have,
Oh, we should?
Yeah, so I'll take a stab,
Yep.
Mr. Chair. We can, I'd move to vote that we find that the conditional use permit application meets the criteria set forth in section 10.1112.14 and to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
second for discussion?
Second.
Now, let's talk about anything on the findings. So I think one of the findings is what was just pointed out.
Yeah,
It's not 10 spaces, it's 5 spaces.
Well, the other finding of fact, and the thing that Councilor Moreau also mentioned, which gives me a lot of comfort, is the fact that this is managed by the hotel. However, how do we ensure that that is forever? Because that's what's giving me comfort.
Condition of approval, it's valet parking.
No, I think, are you intending that garage spaces are forever?
No.
But the
Just it's
hotel
valet.
manage those spaces for, in this way.
As opposed to self-parking.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, as part of that, my question really is, how do you prevent someone from going and parking their car and walking up with their bags into the hotel and checking in without a car, right? So how do you make sure that the people staying there actually use the hotel to park their car, right?
Oh, right.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I mean, I've certainly stayed at places where there'd be no other way to get into the garage without that valet key, so I presume that would be the functionality of it, especially if it's entirely managed.
But what if someone parked their car somewhere in downtown, grabbed their bags, and just walks to the hotel? See what
well-
I'm saying? How do they control that?
Well, you don't.
They can't.
And that's kind of
You can't control that,
that's
that's
the free
policing.
market of parking that we have, so.
That's just my point. It's that really, how do we even make a condition? I mean, we can make a condition that if the hotel, if someone drives up to the hotel, that the hotel is responsible for parking their car. I mean, I think that's really all we can do. But if they don't drive up to the hotel, obviously that can't be under their control.
Well, and that's as presented, right? That's what they're asking for. I just didn't know if 6 months from now or after open, they could change their mind and.
Change their mind.
Right.
We can, I think, make a condition that they are.
That's what I'm asking, if it's.
I was trying to make it clear that that is the way it was presented. So if somebody came up and didn't want to pay a valet fee, which I assume there might be a valet fee to park the car, and they said, I'll park it in Beth's driveway
That's a no.
instead and walk back, that could put the approval at jeopardy. Is that a hand?
It's,
Or is he just like it?
my head's all over the place in this one. I think I'm while I'm appreciative of the comments about looking at the valet and all, and like and even the comments that I raised about stacking, but I think we have to remember that the data that ITE uses when they're doing this stuff, they're dealing with hotels that are already doing all those things already. So I think those spaces have kind of been accounted for, right? Because hotels have those valet stations, and so I don't think we're creating spaces here by, oh, they could put it here, they could put it here, because in the real world, they're already accounting for those in other ways. On the other side, I'm like, it's just 5 spaces. They could get this to work. The path of least resistance for all the customers is going to be go use the valet. Why would you spend money in another garage? But that's also why we have a percentage reduction, because there's all these other resources are parking around, so they're able to capture that. And then on the other side, I'm like, just fine, take 2 years and put the lifts in, and we'll get your power unit when it arrives. We'll give you this 2-year window, because I'm concerned about the erosion of trust, and particularly this sensitive neighborhood of parking. And it's just 5 spaces. I get it, but I'm like, man, we have these criteria, and this would just be another arrow, about, here's the planning board again approving a project that doesn't meet the criteria in this neighborhood, and so I don't give an opinion on where I stand on this vote, but I'm like, these are the things that I'm weighing in my head that are difficult, and I'm sure we're all weighing.
Raised some good points. Yes, Bill?
I'm taken by 2 or 3 things. One is that this is not a here and now question. It's a 20 years from now question, that we're making a decision that's long-lasting. So the problem that we are creating or not, is not just can they solve it by some way in the short run. Secondly, the traffic analysis has, I don't know if I should be saying this, but it's suggesting that business people will be coming into Pease and Ubering to the hotel and staying in the hotel for a week. I don't think so. So the traffic analysis, I think, is pretty aggressive in thinking about how people are going to get to the hotel and how long they're going to stay there. So they made a mistake in design, and I don't. I guess I'm also concerned about the broader neighborhood and the capacity utilization at the garage, the Foundry Garage. I don't know what that is. I'm sure people at this table do. But at some point, the overall parking capacity in the north end is a problem. And to allow somebody to come in and put in less parking than is required for the use they're asking for, I think is an imposition on the broader neighborhood. So I'm really kind of skeptical.
Yes, Andrew?
While I respect the opinions that have been said, I almost think that this is reflective of our ordinance and maybe a discrepancy in that. Like, this has been approved already, and then they did a further reduction in room count, and they're utilizing ratios and percentages for parking that we've written already. And so it's almost like, sure, is 5 spaces going to further exacerbate the parking problem in this neighborhood? Could potentially do that, but ultimately, that's their issue to solve within their property or within the garage spaces or finding more parking in a reasonable manner. So, I struggle with, like, this is already a problem that's been created. Now we're haggling over 5 spaces. Could it have been resolved before? Should it have been looked at more critically before? Probably. And so now we're, haggling over these 5 spaces that, in the grand scheme of things, it's 5 spaces. We're talking about 116 rooms with a certain occupancy percentage, a certain length of stay percentage. And so all of those things are or should be calculated into this approval. And in reality, it could have been solved a long time ago if we had just kind of been more diligent about the parking ratios in general. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think just, and I see every side of this, I think, that folks have said, but under our regulation, a conditional use permit, provided analysis is done that shows that it can work, we are supposed to consider that. Now, if we don't agree with that analysis, which we can request a different analysis, but there should be a rationale for not agreeing with the analysis. Just so happens, because part of the work I do, ITE just this week came out with an updated parking database, but I don't know how it would affect this, if at all. I don't know how analyzing this as a regular hotel as opposed to a business hotel might affect it, if at all, if that would affect the Saturday demand analysis at all. But that's getting more into the weeds. We have in front of us a parking analysis that was accepted by TAC. So if we don't agree with it, we should be specific about why we don't agree with it. If we do agree with it, then, it's not haggling. The applicant has shown, based on our regulations, a rationale for why there is a support to reduce the demand under our regulation. We don't have to do it, though. So I'm kind of like Tony. I'm saying both sides of the argument.
And one other point I think that I don't want to lose is the ITE isn't a report to get you through entitlements. It's also a report so that investors in this project and banks who are risking millions of dollars know that their dollars are being invested wisely. So if a hotel were to come and say, hey, we're not going to provide any parking, we're going to expect people to park in the neighborhoods around us, they're not going to get a loan from a bank. And so the ITE is being used by people who are saying, is this a viable project that's going to work and make money? And by communities saying, is this going to work in our community? So I think that there's, I don't want it to be perceived that this is, ITEs only exist to get through a planning board or ZBA. It's used by everybody saying, does this work? So it is a rational method. There could be criticisms of it that we could throw that way, but so I see your point.
And it's a database, as I pointed out to the applicant. It's not a standard. It's a database. It's a collection of information. Engineers are allowed to submit actual parking utilization. That's how it comes about. There aren't a whole bunch of these. I think there's 12 in the current and 16 under the revised one. So there's not a lot of things to point to, but it's the best there is. It's what's out there. So we're still on findings of fact. So anything else on the findings of fact? I think
One last question, and it's of the staff. Is there a mechanism of approving this with as it is, but saying, hey, you can have 2 years with your shortage of 5, but you've got to put this system online? Is that
I mean, if the board wants to make that type of condition.
that's not going to cause problems with staff? Undue.
I think since we're still under findings, we should make a finding as to whether or not we accept the parking analysis that TAC approved or not. I think that'd be an important
That's a
finding.
good- yeah.
If the board isn't comfortable with that, the board should say so. If the board is comfortable with it, that's as presented, I think, right?
We have a motion and a second.
And which is the motion? So if you're not comfortable with that, then there needs to be an amendment to the motion. Because as moved, we've accepted, yes, Pat?
I guess I feel like more people come to hotels in Portsmouth for recreation than for business, and we have a lot of hotels. So I guess using the business model, I would like to know if there's a difference. I think that would be, helpful in making our determination, personally.
Yes, Andrew?
While I would agree with that statement, I also think it's very easy to advocate or argue for the opposite side of that thesis, where if you label yourself a business hotel and you want to use a certain ratio because it's more favorable to you, then you kind of have that liberty. Now, if we suggest that, yeah, it looks like more people come to Portsmouth on the weekends, that is our thesis. And those contrasting, we could go on and on because they are competing. And at the end of the day, they're both hypothesis of what could happen, and we have to, I feel as though we have to use the standard that is set forth under the category that they have chosen and utilize that ratio because that's how they're choosing to label it. Now, we can say all day that it looks more recreational than business, but it's not necessarily up to us either. I guess end all be all for me would be clarifying if those 33 spaces in the garage are always, in fact, in perpetuity, going to be assigned to this lot, cannot be traded. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
in that essence, I think there's a fundamental or foundation of 33 and 50 spaces in their garage that provide a sufficient amount of parking for maybe what they're asking for, less the 5 spaces, and so I think I can get over 5 spaces.
Mr. Chair, if we can get through this vote, I would propose 2 conditions to the second vote. One that speaks to Tony's request.
Okay, we're on findings. The findings, the motion and the second is before us is to accept the findings as presented, which includes a parking analysis as I stated it. So if people are not comfortable with that, we should talk about it. If you're comfortable with it, and I am, honestly, I'll say I am. So are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
6-1, I think. So, finding the fact adopted as presented.
Let me take a stab. I would move that we vote to grant the conditional use permit with 2 conditions. One would be that the applicant is required to do the work necessary to get the power to get those lifts in whatever time frame it will take. And I'm wondering if we could put in a condition that they are not allowed to valet park on the neighboring streets. Is there a way to include that?
Second one's easier than the first one, I think. Could we have a second just to talk about it?
Second.
So, in essence, your first would be to grant the conditional use permit with the understanding that within, say, 5 years, the lifts would be in place?
Correct.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure, because I was writing these down, the second one is that the valet service cannot use on-street parking?
Correct.
So for discussion purposes, the first one, that's a tough one. Because, as Tony alluded to, I mean, you're basically shutting the hotel down for a period of time when it comes in, and you're completely refeeding. Is this I can't ask him questions. Does anyone recall, is this a transformer issue?
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, we
In addition
wait for
to fire suppression lines
Yeah.
in the
Suppression.
garage.
They need a bigger
wait for
transformer.
transformers for a long time.
Yeah.
So, Tony, help me out here. I see you raising your hand.
Well, the applicant presented that it was an issue with the transformer. I see no reason why you can't install the lifts, anchor them in the up position, you get those 5 spots, and then someday in the future, you install that transformer, you flip the switch, and then you can lower them and up and down. That's my thinking here. That's why I'm like,
I heard fire suppression and generator for that too, though. Did I hear wrong?
What I understood was the transformer wasn't the right size to be able to handle the fire suppression and the lifts. That's my understanding.
In the application, it says fire suppression specifically, so that's kind of what I'm using.
So we're being asked to give a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
we're trying to get to the approved, what was approved, we're trying to get there with a temporary fix.
Yeah, it's more a temporary solution to a problem that's just been identified. I think that's the purpose of the motion, as I understand it.
And, I mean, not that this is part of our consideration, but that comes at a massive expense. That's a massive expense to switch out transformers like
Generators.
that. It's colossal.
The other thing we could do is move to continue it to next month with additional data on that idea.
Is it worth it?
So we don't have to speculate.
Is it worth
Mr.
it?
Chair, if people find the first condition is unreasonable, unattainable,
I just find it difficult. I find it a bit of a hurdle without more information.
what if I withdraw the first proposed condition but leave in the second condition?
Well, I'm all for the second condition.
And Tony, you seconded, so you good with that revision?
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason I'm comfortable with that, because I'm sure they want those spaces too. I mean, they're not looking, I mean, this loss of spaces hurts them just as much as it does them. So if there was a way to do it in the future and they could reach it, I bet they would do it, but to be forced to do it without understanding what the implications are, I think is a
So it would be, if I could rephrase or is that the conditions I understand, it would be, parking will be valet-based and not using on-street parking.
Correct.
Correct, required to be valet-based, and valets are not allowed to use on-street parking. That's my understanding.
That's correct.
and that was seconded.
That's,
and so they
and
said
that's
that
everybody's
changed.
understanding.
Right.
Is this for a time certain, or is this for?
Forever.
It's forever.
Forever. And ever.
Condition. Everybody understand what we have for a motion and a second? Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
6-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, my devices went to sleep. Maybe it's time for me to do that.
Front of Marjorie Street.
Council referrals, right?
Yep, yep.
We have a council referral request, letter from James R. Knudsen in the state of Starr Johnson for donation of map 232, lot 25 on Marjorie Street to the city. Looking for a recommendation to council.
Vote to recommend the city council accept the donation of land from the estate of Star C. Johnson.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Bill?
I've got a question. So there's a pump station there.
Going in.
We're
Beside it.
building one.
It's beside it, I think, isn't it?
Right, it's right at the end of the paper street.
And does this have anything to do with the pump station?
No, it's in the same neighborhood, really close, but it's not this parcel.
Okay.
We own the one the pump station's on.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next one, we had a request to postpone. I don't know that we can. Can I ask the deputy city attorney?
To come give us legal advice.
Since we have the resource, let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a request for the release of a portion of Long Meadow Lane, as you know, Trevor, and we've had a request that we postpone a decision, but our request is from the council. Can we postpone it? Or should we postpone it?
You can postpone it, Chair. You certainly could. The council did not, in their motion, request the report back by a date certain. So if you, the board, feel like there's more information to be gleaned from this situation and you could benefit from that, then you certainly could postpone.
But it would be treated differently than a conventional application where the applicant asks for a continuance, because that would be at the applicant's discretion, whereas this would be at the board's discretion, is what you...
Certainly, this is just a recommendation from this board to the city council. The final decision, as you know, is made by the city council.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I mean, my thoughts on this is if we have utilities in it, I would vote against releasing it in any way, shape, or form, because we need to maintain rights to the properties that we have utilities on. So I guess I don't see a reason to postpone it, because it's pretty straightforward in my mind. Infrastructure needs to be protected.
I agree, and I don't support the idea of releasing it at all. But I wanted to ask the question because we've been asked to postpone it. I just rephrase my question. We don't have to postpone it.
Certainly not.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I just have to abstain from this vote.
Okay.
6-0.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Beth said the utilities, there are utilities in the street. Go ahead.
I'd make a motion, we vote to recommend to city council not to release the city's interest in Long Meadow Lane.
Second.
Now we can discuss it.
Now we can discuss it.
They can come back and do it again.
Kevin's having trouble hearing.
Because your microphone's...
I mean, we're not creating this, this thing etched in stone. If
We
there's-
can't do anything forever on this
Yeah,
one.
and so if if new information comes from the applicant, they can reapply to the council and they can refer it to us again. So I'd say
Right.
right now, let's dispose of this and say,
Yep, I agree.
I completely support Beth's motion. So any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Moving right along.
One absent.
One abstention.
Do we want to go out of order and do the extensions and then
Yes.
go to Gateway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do
sure.
extension of 105 Bartlett requesting a one-year extension of their site plan review, shared parking, wetland conditional use approvals that were set to expire on October 12th.
motion to vote to grant a one-year extension of the planning board approval of the site plan and conditional use permit to October 12th, 25.
Second.
I have to recuse because I recused on this originally because I was yeah, I forgot.
I have to recuse as well. Do we have enough votes?
I was going to say, do we have enough votes at that point?
I should have recused earlier.
We have 5. We have just enough.
Just enough. Okay, there you go.
We're down to the barest.
Supermajority required, and that's such a low number?
No, not on an extension.
All right.
So any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Request of 928, 936 South Street, requesting one-year extension to lot line approval issued on September 21st, 2023, extended on March 15th, 2024, and due to expire on September 21st, 2024. This one, as you saw in the packet, they're really close. They'll have all their documentation ready. They may not even have it tonight, but it's too close. They need the extension to make sure they can.
Move to grant a one-year extension of the planning board approval.
6 months.
Oh,
Second 6 months.
sorry, second 6 months. I read the wrong one, even though I checked off the right one. Grant the second 6-month extension of the subdivision set to expire September 21st, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Extension granted. Thank you. Gateway Neighborhood Overlay District. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to formalize a recommendation to council to go to first reading, which is going to happen Monday night, I believe.
Correct.
Correct. But we also have to schedule a public hearing.
We have to schedule a public hearing for next month. This is on a bit of a fast track. City Attorney's done a lot of work on this. I've also helped with this. Peter Stiss worked on it. Councilor Moreau's worked on it. So if you have questions, we can talk about it, but it's really, tonight, it's the recommendation to council to go ahead, and then the public hearing and the meat and potatoes comes at the next discussion. Yes, Bill?
So this is really a wonderful thing of two negatives canceling each other and coming with a positive. I do have two concerns. One, it would be much better to do this if we had a master plan that was current, so that we would know what we thought of that property area and what we thought of parcels of land that we might like people to donate to the city and what we might use them for. I don't know that a master plan would answer those things, but it would be much more helpful to do things like this if we had a master plan. The other is I don't understand why we're passing the authority on the public spaces from the planning board to the director of planning. It seems like a change of authority where we are currently the deciders and we are now advisors under this proposed ordinance.
Mr. Chair, for the purpose of discussion, would you like a motion?
Certainly.
I move we vote to schedule a public hearing at the October 17th, 2024 Planning Board meeting.
Second.
I recommend to council to go ahead with first reading, which I guess they've already done, but
What's on the agenda?
do we just need, for housekeeping, do we just need to say that we recommend it?
No, I think it can go back for a recommendation at second reading.
Okay, So just schedule a
Because
public
that's when we
hearing.
have the public hearing and when they make changes. We can make changes at first or second, but yeah.
So we have a motion for the public hearing. I didn't, I'm sorry, somebody second, I didn't hear.
Andrew seconded.
Andrew, okay. To your question, to your points, Bill, the first one, sure, in an ideal world, I completely agree with you. I would love to have the master plan updated for this. I think there's a reason why this one has come before us as quickly as it has. That's a reality. That stated, we need to look at it as, the normal part of the legislative process. Does it make sense for this piece of property? As planning board members, can and should we recommend it based on what we know? Is it in conformance with our current master plan, which I think it is? And is it in conformance with recent public policy statements, which I think it is? The Housing Committee, just before this meeting, voted to recommend it. So that's also supportive of the idea that this should go forward. I think the other part of it, both parts of it actually go forward as to whether this sort of an overlay or this concept gets expanded to other parts of the city. I think that's a clear, once and if this gets adopted, should it be extended to other parts of the city, and how might it be extended, what might be adjusted? Should there be a different way of looking at public realm improvements, for example? So I think those are good questions, but I think that they, in my mind, they would pertain if it gets expanded outside this area. And that's my personal opinion. So, yes, Beth.
To speak to one of the things you said whether or not this would be a good area. At Land Use Committee, we talked about expanding, when we expanded the gateway, next looking at this area because it's office research. This sort of pilot program gives us the ability to take an overlay and put it on a place where you don't allow residential, and to allow it so that that can become a symbiotic kind of thing. So if it worked here, could we take it and put it over an industrial area where there's light industrial warehouses or something like that? We could, I think it's a really good tool that if it does work and this pilot program actually, creates what we want it to create, is a really good thing for the city to move forward. The one big question that came up at the Housing Committee that we discussed and said we would bring up here for people to give train of thought is, so we have the three different ways that a developer can, give us money, give us workforce housing, or give us land, right, in the simplest of terms. Under the give us land, we've really put in the onus on the city council to have blanket authority to approve of the land that they want to give us. So we're not telling them, they're telling us we have this land. I think our thoughts and our conversation went around, do we want this land to be within the GNOD where the overlay district is, or could the land be outside of it? And I think the way it's written, the chairman and I have argued back and forth about what we think. I think it has to be. He says it doesn't. So, we could have a discussion about that and maybe a thought process around whether or not would it matter if it's within that the Gateway Neighborhood Overlay District area that the land would be offered to the city, or could it be in other areas of the city? Spurred conversation.
Andrew.
There's a lot to consider. I think, yes, public realm improvements are a phenomenal start on incentives. Workforce housing is a great tail there, and arguably should be the headliner. Where I have a little bit of, need for clarity is payment in lieu of and land transfer. So, a sunk cost is a sunk cost in a development, but the opportunity for revenue and profit for a developer can easily supersede that sunk cost of a payment in lieu of. So if we truly have the idea of workforce housing inclusive and inclusive as a community overall type of mentality, then payments in lieu of should at least have a direction associated with them. And maybe they do, but right now it just has this blanket payment to the city that goes to the fee committee and then to the city council for scheduling. So it's my belief that anytime you're taking money from somebody, that money should have a direction and an objective to it. And again, maybe I just am not clear on that.
You mean where the money goes?
Yes.
Into the housing trust.
Sure, but then like what is the housing trust doing with it?
That's step 2.
Okay. Would that be defined?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get there. Lastly, and to be quick, I mean, we are obviously stating that recognizing the unique nature of land, not all property may be suitable or desirable for this purpose in such a land transfer. So I don't think it's with respect to the zone that the land is in, but if it's even worthy of considering. And I would say that that has to fall into either the planning board or the ZBA's consideration rather than the city council's consideration. No?
No, the acceptance of land is ultimately a city council
Yeah,
decision.
no doubt, but I think just the worthiness in general. Like, why is the city council reviewing that when it's inevitably going to have to come back to the ZBA and planning board at the end of the day?
Doesn't necessarily have to go to ZBA.
Okay, fair enough.
But planning board's going to see it anyways when they see it for site plan. It's just whether or not
Yeah, but-
they've qualified for the land transfer. And the city council, basically their ultimate decision is this land we want to take on and try to develop for workforce housing?
As a suggestion?
Not
if
as
we-
us as
if we could-
planners.
If we could talk about the general concepts that we as a board should be thinking about before the next meeting, I think that'll be productive for tonight. Getting into the weeds tonight, I think might be a bit beyond what we were supposed to be doing tonight. But, so your question about fee, that's a hole that's missing. It needs to be filled in. Just has to be filled out. And the mechanics of the land transfer. I think the point that you were raising, Andrew, was the identification of the parcel. The actual acceptance has to be the city council, but maybe there could be a mechanism of the planning board working.
Yeah,
To
and to
define-
me, I think my end-all sentiment is that if the city council's already preliminarily giving their consent to this, and then it goes to planning board, we're like kind of the little brother of the whole equation. And that doesn't necessarily pencil in my head.
Mr. Chair, I think the deputy city
I
attorney
think our
wants to
deputy city attorney wants to speak.
He's hovering.
He is hovering.
Come on up.
Come join the conversation.
Thank you, Chair. Just because there is actually an easy answer to this, which is the ordinance does provide for the land transfer that the planning board provide written comments about the offered parcel to the city council, which is the same process and procedure that we follow all the time for land transfers. And again, pursuant to our charter and to our ordinances, it has to be the city council that decides, do we accept this parcel of land or not? And they will do so with the benefit of all the information that the developer must provide to the city council and the benefit of the planning board's recommendation.
Yeah. That is an easy answer.
And just to clarify something that was clarified to me by the deputy city attorney, the dispute or disagreement that Councilor Moreau and I had, she is correct, I am wrong, it has to be inside the G9.
I love it when I win.
Hear that? Did you hear that right? Okay, Tony.
I'll support this, but I'm going to kind of give an alternative view or opinion of maybe something for the master plan. I actually am not really excited about these the land transfer, the payment in lieu, and the affordable housing. And it may sound shocking. I think what you with good intentions have, and we in Portsmouth and other communities all around the country have done, is actually limited the housing stock. Because when you say, hey, if you want to build 4 stories, you can do it by right. If you do 5, you have to do affordable housing. And what you end up doing is making the most expensive floor the top floor of that building. And so people they just don't build it. And so or they build it and you don't realize what the density you could have had if you just let it be market rate. And so as a country, we've reduced the amount of housing with these good intentions trying to get at these things. And so I think there's another way of looking at this, saying, what would be done if we had by right bigger heights and in areas like this where there's really little impact on our historic core. It's like we should be looking bigger and more dense here. And I think that there's a missed opportunity for parcels like this and other parcels in the city where we could get really super density, and we get affordability by density, not by mandating a government, hey, you have to make a certain percentage of this affordable, you have to give a park down to the city or whatnot. It's just another way of looking at this, that you might consider that there's a lost density in the United States because of all of these planning boards, thousands and thousands of planning boards putting in restrictions on this. So, my 2 cents. Soapbox done.
Good point. Anything else? Yes, Bill.
There's a quandary too that is a little bit off track, but what we're doing is we're turning into landlords with large rental properties. We're not having home ownership, and so we're currently working on probably 1,000 units in the queue, and virtually all of them are rental by large landlords. That's not really where Portsmouth was historically. The landlords are generally small landlords historically. So, and we've historically been about 50-50 landlord and or renter and owner, and everything we're building is renter.
Okay, well, we have a motion to schedule a public hearing
And a second.
and a second.
I think I already did.
Yeah, it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I look forward to hearing from the public.
Yeah, it should go.
Can't escape yet.
I didn't say I was leaving. I was just excited.
I've been asked to sign a letter in support of a grant request that I guess the planning department the housing coordinator, the housing coordinator has prepared it, but it's going under the planning department. But basically, it's a request for state funding to provide some assistance with zoning amendments. It's not a lot of money. It's, according to Howard, it's like 50, 60,000. RKG, who's already done work on a lot of stuff. You can help Beth if folks want to know what the details are, but they've done a lot of work leading up to this. It's basically to allow them to continue. I was not comfortable recommending it without a consensus of the board, if the board is in support of it. So if you're in support of it, I will, and if you're not, I won't.
I'll make a motion to consent to the planning board letter.
I'll
Second.
second. And Mr. Chair, can I just mention that the mayor is writing a letter of support as well?
And the housing committee just approved a letter as well to send. But just to briefly speak to this, we originally got a $250,000 grant almost 2 years ago in which to hire Howard, the community housing navigator. On top of that, we got an $82,000, and these are all the Invest New Hampshire grants. So HOP grants, as they like to call them. So we've now, I think, probably spent most of the $82,000, and this would be a continuation of the work that was done with that money on consultants that got us that great model that RKG has been doing. Because one of the things our zoning was always missing was the numbers behind the percentages to put into it. You know,
Which goes
how much
to what
workforce housing,
what
that sort of
Tony
thing.
was saying.
Right,
basically.
all of those numbers, we now have a model built that can be used, so if you're going to get this many, and that's what the fee committee can use to come up with that fee. So we've got the tools now, it's just a matter of using them, and we'd like to take it and stretch it right into the actual zoning. So this is going to help do that and extend the work that's already been done. So my 2 cents.
So, a motion to support that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I think. The master plan RFQ, legal department has been working on it. I assume it's going to be final review next week. I understand something like that. So hopefully that'll be ready to go out later this month.
And work session next week.
Yes, we have a work session next week, talk about zoning amendments.
Next Thursday, right?
Next Thursday, right?
Sorry, I won't be here.
Will we be here or next door?
We have this room.
Okay.
I will not be here.
I will not be here.
Ooh,
6
boy.
p.m.
20 people will be here.
Sorry.
Joe, will you be here?
I will.
I guess so.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Sorry, I have a pre-planned
And-
evening.
With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.